Alrighty, so this is going to be the third video I'm going to record before I take a hiatus. It's something that's been bouncing around in my head, and I'm just trying to think about it out loud. But when I hear, and I know I put ethnicity because race. Like I say, you have to be very careful with that word race in terms of biology, because it's like, ooh, yeah. Wignats ruined that word, But I think that when people say race is a social construct or ethnicity, you don't say ethnicity is a social construct. It's like, no, it's a little deeper than that. People have had other cultures forced onto them, and they assimilate and everything else. It's more complex than that. I was just thinking about this out loud. I just I don't go with that argument, and I think that this is a very complex issue. We're seeing that, yeah, there are going to be less white folks around, quote unquote, here in the United States. I mean, I know race in the United States is such a fucking mess as it is. Blame whoever you want to, but it is a mess. And the fact is that, you know, white folks aren't going to die. I say white as a loose term, but, Caucasians are not going to die out. It's not like we're going to end up like some dodo bird, but we're going to be more mixed, because the reality is that to me, caring about your race or your ethnicity or trying to be pure is something for royals. It's something for people to say, "Oh, yes, I have a good bloodline." What are you, a dog? But race in real life terms, in my opinion, only comes from the rich. And we're talking bourgeoisie and, the industrialists and fat cats and politicians to a point. And maybe petty bourgeoisie to a point, if we want to use those terms. But the poor don't have that luxury, in my opinion. They don't have that luxury. And people who grew up poor, they may hold racial views because they're taught that way, or they say, yeah, Reading, you don't have a job because those Mexicans are taking your job. And, so they grow up with that hatred, thinking, yeah, but they don't see you as one of them. There's a whole WASP versus, the white trash sort of folks and all that business, that exists in the United States. I'm never going to be seen as a purebred white dude, probably compared to some of these other folks. I think this is the reality of it. This is why, when you meet a lot of these Wignats, they're having kids with Filipino women and whatnot, because they're so spurgy as it is that they're the only women that will let them sleep with them. Yeah. So, like I say, man, I think that race is something that can only be concerned with when you reach a certain class, when you make enough money. Hold on. Hey, Joe. That's my opinion. The future is going to be more melanated than white folk, your Wignats or, your purebreds will like. And I think the thing is that only white nationalists are the ones, I use these terms loosely, but are the ones that are worried about, a pure 100% Bavarian phenotype. I know, Murdoch, I know, but they're the only ones. Black folks do have that to a point, but it's like, even with Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad was half white. Minister Louis Farrakhan's son married to a white woman. You know, and I've said this before, but the folks that really talk about race, that really get into it with race and talk about we're here to save white folks or we're here to save black folks. The ones that really make a living off that, thou just protest too much because they usually have to say these things because they have some baggage and they're doing that to cover up, Same thing with Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed's wife is half white as well. So, I mean, that's why I always question these things about ethnicity, this and that. I'm almost to the point where it's like you have to work with other folks. I'm going to have to learn to say habla español. I will. I'm going to have to probably to a different degree, learn to shuo zhonguo ren, zhonguo ren. More specifically, shuo putonghua. That's speaking Chinese or speaking Mandarin. Well, putonghua I think is standard Mandarin, but anyway, we've been over that, but probably to a different degree, And it's easy for me to be like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna, be this or be that, but it's like, look, man, you can't be like these boomers because life is not going to be that way where you can just say, I don't want to speak another language, because Americans, like I say, Europeans, they can speak between Italian and German in some cases. I'm sure that there are, different all the way around, but it's like they have that sort of people have to talk amongst one another. Okay, to finish up my point, the future of the United States is going to be a little bit darker complexion-wise than it has been. I think that's the reality we need to accept. You can go ahead and pretend to be a Wignat and say, well, if we had a pure white city here, my example, I'm going to give this example again, much in the same way as people like Alphonse Capone, who apparently they're comparing Donald Trump to Al Capone now because of taxes, which the media. Ugh. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. To finish my point, though, is I think it's well, I'll put it this way: Al Capone, while he grew up in a fairly well-to-do family, his dad was a barber, his mom was a homemaker, as far as I know. He was running in the streets. He was fighting and, doing all that. He was part of a gang called the 40 Thieves. I've repeated this before, but it's like he didn't really care that much about race. While, the Northside gang was worried about race. And they don't want to work with, WAPs or anything else like that, right? The thing is that Al Capone, is usually portrayed as being this, a loud, obnoxious guy or something like that. It's like, yeah, that's part of him, but I think also there's a sensitive part because he defended a lot of what Jake Gussig did. Jake Gussig was an accountant who, basically Jake Greasy Thumbs Gussig died in 1956, I think, in Chicago. And he was defended by Al Capone because, people were saying anti-Semitic stuff, and I'm sure they said the K word and all this other stuff. And they were beating up on him. And, Jack Gussig was a fairly, kind of a wimpy guy. And, people like Al Capone came in and defended him. He shot a guy in the face because of it, There's a story where it's like, he was hassling Jake Greasy Thumbs Gussig and, and Al Capone sees this. And he says, hey, what's going on, Al? pushes him up against the wall, pulls out his snub nose, shoots him. You know, I think it goes to show as well is that when you're a lumpen proletariat, race doesn't matter. It's what you're worth. You know, if you can run guns or if you can steal, and that guy right there is a good thief and y'all got a system going, I don't care about whatever race you're a part of. You know, as long as we can make money and as long as we're a team, then I don't care. You know, that's one of the differences, I imagine. You know, for me, like I say, I am middle class, honky, you know. I don't know. I guess I'll just say is that I realize that race and ethnicity are very complex subjects, and to try to simplify it to say, oh, well, you know, bone structure and, you know, trying to be like a HBD sort of anthropologist level sort of guy is unrealistic for most people. You know, if you want to be a wignat, you know, beyond the ridicule, beyond the arrests, beyond the disowning by family members, why would you want to get involved with that? You know, because these guys don't care about you; they'll throw you under the bridge. You know, if you if you are seen as a threat, or if they want to save themselves, you know. I think that's all I have to say, though. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I don't think there's anything else I have to say about it. I'm just saying is that my views on it are evolving. You know, I realize that, you know, cultures are very complicated. And me being the honky that I am, I'm just going to have to kind of follow along, and maybe I'll get along to get along, you know, I don't know. But yeah, that's all I can really say. It's a complex thing. So see you later. Goodbye.